welcome and thank you for joining me again. Let's try and wrap up the theological audit on the Watchtower study edition for October 2019. Section Give Devotion exclusively to Jehovah. We're up to paragraph 15. What gift has Jehovah provided for us to enjoy? Many of Jehovah's people enjoy watching JW Broadcasting, our wholesome internet television station. A sister named Marilyn said, JW Broadcasting has helped me to be more positive, and I don't have to filter the content. I'm not sure what she means by that. Maybe she means secular ads or something like that. But when I get lonely or discouraged, I find an encouraging talk or morning worship program to watch. That makes me feel closer to Jehovah and to his organization. The provision of JW Broadcasting has completely changed my life. Are you benefiting from Jehovah's gift? In addition to a new program each month, JW Broadcasting features numerous audio and video programs as well as uplifting songs that are available on demand. And we're going to go to Telltale.
Propaganda. They do this monthly thing called JW Broadcasting. I didn't think it was that big, but the other day I was on a Roku box and I found a JW Broadcasting app. I was like, what the f***? Apparently there's a JW Broadcasting app on lots of different devices, so I think it's time I took another look at JW Broadcasting. One thing before we get started, I wanted to mention that Genetically Modified Skeptic and I are having a fan meetup in New York City on Friday, July 12th from 7 to 11 p.m. The address is in the description. Okay, let's get into it. One thing before we get started. If you want to support me, you can do it through Patreon or Teespring. Those are the two best ways. YouTube is always up and down, and it's very stressful, so if you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, you can support me that way. Links are in the description. Also, before I became a YouTuber, I hosted websites for people. It's not for everybody. I just manage a Linux VPS cluster with some websites on it, like my own website, telltaleatheist.com or faithlessforum.com. The servers are just sitting there not doing much, so if anybody has a website they want to host, you can contact me about it through my business email address, which is in the description. Servers have cPanel, so if you're unfamiliar with that, or you're unfamiliar with SSH, FTP, or Shell, it might not be for you. I typically run WordPress websites, and it's mostly just hosting space. Not much support beyond me just making sure it's free of viruses and hackers. Something to consider. Okay, now let's get into the JW Broadcasting episode.
This is my sister, Lele.
This is my sister, Mimi.
My sister, Lele, she is very caring. I know that for sure.
One thing that I appreciate about Mimi is that she have the self-sacrificing spirit.
I can understand why self-sacrificing is a desirable trait. Kind of altruistic, I guess. And this is probably a nitpicky point, but I feel like mentioning that Jehovah's Witnesses as an organization are only self-sacrificing for other Jehovah's Witnesses. They're labeled as a non-profit organization, a charity, and they get tax-exempt status for it. But they don't actually do any charitable work for anybody except other Jehovah's Witnesses. That's it. And really, all the money flows one direction, toward the organization. You never really find the organization setting up homeless shelters or food banks or any of that stuff. On a local level, if people are having a hard time, then others in the congregation will pitch in to help. But as an organization, they don't do anything for anybody but themselves. Okay, so 16 seconds in, and we've learned that these two are sisters. Let's continue.
What I love most about my mom is that she has a big heart.
And I know that my dad really truly loves his family.
Oh, Asian kids, two white parents. Is there something the mom didn't tell the dad? Certainly the Jehovah's Witnesses who produced this video are aware of genetics on a base level.
Our sister Sophie always takes care of you, making sure you are okay. But it wasn't always like that.
We haven't always been sisters.
Certainly they understand genetics, right? Please tell me this isn't going where I think it is. I really would not put it past Jehovah's Witnesses.
At a young age, I was already in the foster home, and then Mimi became my foster sister.
Okay, glad to know it wasn't going where I thought it was.
We were not treated as part of their family.
We never knew what love felt like.
There isn't a bedroom for us.
Me and Lady would share a couch. Our foster family, they would leave us by ourselves at home, and me and Lele had to take care of ourselves.
I didn't like authority figures and didn't really trust them.
I was lost. I was confused. I just did whatever I could possibly to protect myself.
We have experienced things that no children should go through.
Okay, I understand they had a very hard life before being adopted by this Jehovah's Witness family. That's basically the picture they're trying to draw here. Let's see how it plays out.
We found out there was a family who wanted to adopt us. I was 12 years old.
And I was 9 years old. One thing that was tough for me was conversing.
I had a difficult time to trust.
The first time I saw my mom and dad praying at the dinner meal, it was very new to me because I never knew that that there was a God.
Oh, here we go. It's turning into Jesus Central up in this piece. All right, let's hear him out.
I had some past experience with religion, and I didn't like it. So when I first saw my mom and dad praying, I was uncomfortable with it.
They took us to this place called the Kingdom Hall. The first thing we felt was warmth and love.
All these friends coming up and to say hi to us, giving us hugs, just super loving towards us.
A couple of things to point out in this clip. First, notice they mentioned how past religions left a bad taste in their mouths. They mentioned that because they want to drive home the idea that all religions are evil except Jehovah's Witnesses. In fact, them driving that home so hard with me is really one of the things that led to me being an atheist. I probably would have ended up atheist eventually anyways, but I spent my entire life learning about how corrupt and evil all other religions are, and how they can't be trusted. When I realized how corrupt and disgusting Jehovah's Witnesses are, I just kind of defaulted to atheist. I realized that they're no better than any other religion out there. In fact, they're a lot worse than a lot of other Christian religions. So that's the first point I want to make. Now, if you watch my channel regularly, you're probably aware of the bite model. It was written by Stephen Hassan to point out logical fallacies and control techniques commonly employed by cults. I set up something of a grading system for religions to see how far in that direction they go. One of the main points on the bite model is something called love bombing. They'll come up to you and try to make you feel as welcomed, loved, and happy as possible, because they want to link their teachings with happy feelings. It's a manipulation tactic. That being said, let's give that last bit another listen before we move on to the next part.
First thing we felt was warmth and love.
All these friends coming up and to say hi to us, giving us hugs, just super loving towards us.
Dad would give us a notepad, and he told us to draw anything that you understand. And so that was our notes. We would just draw pictures.
They would pray with us, teaching us how to pray specifically and see how Jehovah can answer our prayer.
Of course, humans are pattern-seeking creatures, so if you pray for something specific and you don't get it, then you just didn't pray for the right thing. It wasn't part of Jehovah's plan. It isn't right for you. Try praying for something else until you get a hit. If you get what you were praying for, then it means it was right for you. That's how it works. That's another way to sink people deeper into the belief system. Next, they're going to tell us how a good Jehovah's Witness lives their life. Let's continue.
We would eat breakfast every day together and do daily texts. We would do reenact Bible stories.
And prepare for meetings.
I was able to really learn more about Jehovah and understand it. And that helped me to give more comments and draw closer to Jehovah.
A big change for me was during the 2014 International Convention. Just seeing the love and the unity between brothers and sisters touched my heart. That also helped me to progress towards making the decision of getting baptized.
Take a look at this picture here. This is really the difference between a cult and a religion. I hear a lot of people talking about how all religions are cults to some degree or another, but I don't think that's true. Now, this is a picture, so you'd expect people to be smiling for it, but give this bit another listen and think about what she's saying.
Just seeing the love and the unity between brothers and sisters touched my heart.
Here's the real difference between a cult and a religion. A cult sets up a system of rewards and punishments to modify the behavior of the members. You'll notice cult members are just a little bit too smiley. They're a little too happy. They have glassy eyes. If you've ever met a Mormon, you can usually spot the perma-smile from a mile away. They teach them that their lives are absolutely fantastic because they're a member of the religion. They reinforce the behavior modification in a Pavlovian way, the same as Pavlov conditioned his dog by ringing a bell bell before feeding it. With Jehovah's Witnesses, the behavior modification comes in the form of guilting them in the best case, and the threat of depriving people of their childhood friends and family members if they break the rules in the worst case. That's the negative reinforcement. They also have positive reinforcement in the form of love bombing, like we talked about earlier. What I'm about to say is probably pretty controversial, but you find the same type of behavior modification in Catholicism. I had a fan meetup recently in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I talked to a lot of ex-Catholics. The one thing I learned from all of them is that Catholicism does behavior modification just as intensely as any other cult out there. I have a future video coming out about it. Okay, let's keep watching.
Going on service more, I think it really helped me to draw closer to Jehovah and making the kingdom feel real to me. And so that's why I wanted to get baptized. And after I graduated high school, I started to pioneer. It's one way to show my love to Jehovah. I used to just take care of myself, but I learned to take care of others and to think of others first.
Going on service wasn't easy for me at first because I'm actually a very shy person, but I decided to rely on Jehovah and started pioneering.
Now they're setting up expectations. You're supposed to go in service, whether you're comfortable with it or not. In fact, in their new book, Pure Worship of Jehovah, they actually say that going in service is the new animal sacrifice. If we don't do it, then we'll die in Armageddon. For those of you who don't really know what service is, that's what Jehovah's Witnesses call it when they go knocking on doors. They take it very seriously. And I could be wrong with this number, but I think the average they bring in is one person for every 10,000 hours of door knocking, which means if you do 10 hours of door knocking per week, which is reasonably average, every week of the year, you'll bring in about one person every 19 years. That is an obscenely low number. Unfortunately, they're also bringing in new members through the birth rate, although lots of European countries are net losing people, so that's a good sign. And on top of that, they are still net gaining people in America, but it's below population growth, so they're basically growing slower than the average population is. It's not perfect, but it's something. But I honestly think they'll be around forever. There are Heaven's Gate members left over from 1996. There will always be at least a few Jehovah's Witnesses hanging around until the end of time. But if we can minimize that number, then I'll be happy. Anyways, that's all I've got for you. If you like what I do, you want to see me continue to do it,
every event I do, there's always like 3 people who will end up being speakers in the future, right? Always. And this is someone who's a bit like that. So we start speaking at something else that we did, and she's here now as a speaker, and as I said, she'll be Selena on the panel. It is her first time speaking, isn't it? And how do you feel?
Terrified. In fact, if you had told me 5 years ago that I would be here speaking as an apostate, I would have told you that I don't bet, but I'd rather bet that England will win the next World Cup again. And we all know that's not very likely.
That's not going to happen. So if you can put your hands together for Selena.
So first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone who's here, because that means that you've all made an effort to come here and to really talk about something that's very, very difficult. And also for everyone else who's here on the panel. As you can see, I'm very, very, very nervous because I never ever thought that I would be talking about this. I never thought that I would become an apostate. And for anybody who isn't a Jehovah's Witness, apostate just means somebody who has left a religion. But to Jehovah's Witnesses, an apostate is just someone who's got, Ebola. You don't go near them, you don't talk to them, because you're going to catch Ebola. And that's the kind of fear that they have of us, people who have left for whatever reason. And so I really didn't expect that I would lose my family, my friends. I didn't even expect that my non-Jehovah's Witness family would shun me, because I thought they would understand. But they didn't. And for 4 years since I've left, I've had to do a lot of soul searching and a lot of thinking about how do I go forward, and how do I make a difference, and how do I help other people to not go through the same thing that I went through. So just to give you a bit of a background, I was born in Madeira, which is a Portuguese island, and my dad is an alcoholic. My mum suffers from depression and really didn't want to have me because she was in her 40s. She had 5 other kids. I think if she could, she would have had an abortion. And I felt ever since I was little that I wasn't loved. I was hit, I was abused sexually, emotionally, pretty much every way you can think to be abused, I was. I suffered bullying. I've gone through pretty much everything that you can think of. And maybe I'm exaggerating, maybe there are worse stories in the world. And I don't want you to just focus on that because my story isn't unique. Many other people have gone through similar things that I've gone through. And so when I came to London, I was 8 years old and my mum and dad had separated, and I really honestly felt like this was going to be a change. I was going to become a better person. I would have a much better life. And that's when we started going to the meetings with my sisters, and that's when I thought I found love. You know, this is the place where I need to be. And it helped me and it didn't help me. You know, I thought that these people would even die for me. But these were people who I didn't even get to say goodbye to. I can't say hello to them. If I see them on the street, they'll pretend they don't know I'm there. So that for me was, there are no words to describe how that feels. And I really did everything that I could to be a good Jehovah's Witness. I didn't take blood when I was supposed to have my back operation. I regular pioneered for 3 years, which means that I spent an average of about 70 hours a month knocking doors. And often that meant that I had to take a part-time job during a recession. I had to be unemployed sometimes because I couldn't find a part-time job to go around that. I found it very hard to find people to go door to door with me because I didn't have a car. I had to walk hours and hours by foot just to reach people, and often they would just slam the door in my face. But I kept doing it because I honestly believed that this was the truth. Until I started to speak to the elders. Until I started to do everything by the book. And I noticed the elders weren't doing everything by the book. And that really annoyed me, but I still kept going. Until they said, well, the reason why you're struggling, Selena, is because you were abused as a child. And we think that something else must have happened to you because your reaction is just, you know, it's not that bad, you know. Something else must have happened to you because your reaction is so extreme. You know, and that's why your faith is weak. And that is when I never went back to the Kingdom Hall again. Because I said to myself, that is the number one reason why I am in this religion. And if they can't sense that, then God isn't here. And when I explained this to my family, they said, well, you got bad elders. Just stay anyway. But I couldn't. Eventually, no matter how diplomatic I could be, I was backed into a corner and I dissociated myself. And as soon as I did that, my sister said, we're not talking to you anymore. You're not saying goodbye to your nephews, because that's selfish of you. And eventually, pretty much every person in my family thought I was crazy or didn't talk to me. But I'm still here. There has been many, many times where I have felt suicidal, I felt down, but I am still here. Now, if I am still here, then many, many other people are going through this situation and they're also still here, but many aren't. What do you think it would do to some people to be in these kind of circumstances. See, we worry about many, many things, but actually this is still going on, and that is why I'm here today, sharing about my story. It isn't so you can just pity me, because I've managed to come this far. It's so you can see that we all need to talk about this.
Thank you. I mean, you're a student here, aren't you, as well? And I know this is quite a big thing because there's a line drawn when you do this video, isn't there? And there's a line drawn for all of you guys in many ways. And that line, as some of you ex-JWs will know, is that's it. You know, fading is one thing you can do where you sort of don't really talk about the religion or getting involved, but as soon as you've done something like this, that's it. I think it's doubly brave. So when someone, for me, I've said this before, when someone says to me, I want to speak, it's almost scary for me because I know what they're committing to, and it's like, it's doubly brave, you know. So thank you for doing that, Selena. Quick question, and this is relevant to what Faith to Faithless is doing as well. We've done some focus groups with apostates, people who've left religion, ex-Muslims, ex-JWs, whatever. We've mixed them up and try to figure out what do they need. You mentioned that you had some points where you were quite suicidal. What would have been useful at that time that you didn't have?
So I actually tried to go down the conventional route, and I went to my GP and I tried to get counselling, and I tried to get counselling here at university, but there really isn't an awareness about high control groups or cults. So in the NHS, I do have to say that when I saw a psychiatrist privately, instantly the word cult came up because I didn't even want to identify it as a cult until then. But in the NHS, there is this belief. And people just think, well, you're depressed, you know, just take some tablets. Or you feel like you're being interrogated, almost as if you're part of the judicial committee again with the elders and being judged. Because everything that you say, they kind of ask to you again, and then you're struggling to say things, and they'll say, well, you need to be honest and say the truth. And that just triggers more memories of being as a witness. And I don't think they have enough knowledge and understanding about the methods used in cults.
Yeah, that's very useful because that's actually exactly what we found. Like word for word, that's what we found. And this is why we're trying to train those organizations better. Because often it's not really that they're doing it negatively, they don't understand. And often it's just trying to explain how these things work, right? Okay, very good. So can you just put your hands together? I mean, that was really...
So being a Jehovah Witness is a high control lifestyle. You've given your life over basically to the demands of the institution or the organization. You don't have to be an intelligent person to know how you can control the amount of time you spend on entertainment. Yeah, some people are excessive, other people are excessive in serving Jehovah. Now, the religion will tell you, well, that's the favourite direction to go in. Make sure that you study the Bible, make sure you get into the family worship and congregation meetings, and you're serving Jehovah in the preaching and teaching work. But for women, as it were, they can't do a lot of this. They're not allowed to be leaders and things. So how do you spend your time of entertainment? We went down this morning to the waterfront and all the Jehovah Witnesses were there, and I spoke to them for about an hour. Then this afternoon we went down and had fish and chips by the water, and with the little grandson, and he rode his push bike and splashed in the water, and then we come back and swam in the pool and things. This idea that you've got to love the Lord your God or Jehovah with all your heart, mind and soul and put him first and everything, it undermines the pinnacle of what life is. and that is to enjoy the life that we have now. Don't let your faithfulness and loyalty blind you from the life that you should be living now, because Jehovah's not in any way intimidated by that. We'll come back in the next session and we'll do Remain Exclusively Devoted to Jehovah. This is Dr. Jason W. Morrison, Theologist, New South Wales, Australia. Thank you for joining me, and bye for now.